everybody, welcome to The Garage, the court of public opinion for today. We post on a Tuesday and a Wednesday on Facebook, and of course Andy Martin sends it out there miraculously as a podcast, wherever you get your favourite podcasts from. Peter Clayton's behind the camera, I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. As I say, welcome. I mean, it's to my shame, I suppose, that I have not been to the zoo to see the pandas. Most of the family have, and I love the zoo. I think we've got one of the best zoos you could imagine. It's world class. Well, it seems we're going to get two replacement pandas, Wang Wang and Fu Ni, I think it is. Is that right, Pete?
Yes, yes.
Wang Wang and Fu Ni. We'll get Wang Wang and Fu Ni Mark II. Now, it could be that they're quite happy going back to China.
Well, I don't know, if they can't reproduce, they might finish up on the dinner table.
Oh dear, I don't know. I've got no idea. People in China don't have much say over their lives, so I guess in a sense pandas have even less, or I don't know, maybe more. Maybe more. We pay the Chinese, by the way, $1 million a year to have them on a lease arrangement. I don't know if you knew that. $1 million a year. It's amazing how commercial and capitalistic the communists really are. They're very good business people, in case you hadn't noticed. A report that says another 9 Chinese asylum seekers. So everybody in China is not happy. 9 Chinese asylum seekers were turned back last week. We don't actually know, of course, how many make it through. That is an awful lot of coastline to try and keep an eye on. Probably an impossible job. But anyway, when you stand for election, you are applying for the job. You better know how to do it. I was so glad to see that the clipper ship, the city of Adelaide, which brought so many people to our city of Adelaide, has taken another important step to full restoration. So it's off the barge and it's on the wharf. No easy feat. It's huge. Amazingly big. A couple of weeks ago we had the pleasure of having Peter Christopher, the man behind this very important project, on the Friday live streaming show from the dining room table, and there it was the other night on Channel 7 News, Sunday night I think it was. There was the city of Adelaide, high and dry, and lots of people there to celebrate this next stage. There's a lot to do. I mean, an intimidatingly lot to do, but she's on her way. Pete, what was that song? Was it Willie Nelson who did that? Was it the train they call the city of New Orleans? Yes. Why don't you write a song and call it the ship? No, the clipper. The clipper they call the city of New Orleans.
City of Adelaide. Yeah, no.
Oh yeah, the clipper the city of Adelaide. Yeah, it'd be a natural, wouldn't it?
I could give it a try.
Yeah. What a good thought. Yeah, the clipper they call the city of Adelaide. You could do it to the same tune, couldn't you?
Oh, that beach is
cheeky.
That's cool.
All right, sorry. I'll stick to talking. You do the singing. Employment is up a little bit, 0.1%. Unemployment 4.1 to 4%. Now, it's not a lot, but it's probably enough to convince the Reserve Bank of Australia to keep the interest rates where they are. No downward movement, which I know people are hoping for. No downward movement probably this year. 42,000 new jobs a month we're creating. We will know later today, because the RBA meets today. The decision has not been made at the time I sit here and we record today's and tomorrow's edition of the Court of Public Opinion. But I'm pretty confident in saying the interest rates will stay where they are. In the last quarter, Australia's housing stock, interest rates have a significant bearing on such things. The housing stock gained another $200 billion in value in just a quarter, just the last quarter. Now that takes the total value of our domestic housing stock to $10 trillion. It's an awful lot of real estate. I think if I was starting out again, Pete, do you ever worry or think, if I was starting out again, I'd do this or I'd do that?
Oh, yes.
I think I'd go into real estate. I think I would. I mean, when I say go into real estate, I mean selling it. I think if you're good at it, you can make a really wonderful life for yourself. But is $10 trillion a bubble? Well, if it's a bubble, it's quite a bubble. A big one. Disgraceful that the National War Memorial was defaced by the pro-Palestinians. Now, this is not our fight. It's not our issue. Why don't you, if you feel so strongly about this, get out of this country? If you sympathize with those crazy people over there, go over there, revel in the nonsense, and save the Palestinians. The Sydney Morning Herald and the Age, by the way, ran a story on the weekend. You may have seen it, depending on where you're watching this posting or listening to this podcast. The 9 News, which is the Age and the Sydney Morning Herald, say that our universities have been infiltrated by Islamic extremists. Our universities. Now, by that, I take it, reading the story, they're talking about the worst of the worst. Those Islamic State bastards, murderers. And this has been going on right underneath our noses, and of course underneath, presumably, the noses of the academics who run the universities. Who would think that those university students would be so stupid? I mean, we imagine that they've got all the smarts in the world. They would have been smart enough to notice who was manipulating them, wouldn't they? And then don't get involved, let alone don't take part. Oh dear, oh dear. Don't get me started. Demonstrations are interesting, however. On the weekend, when the Chinese Premier was here in Adelaide, talking pandas, a perfect opportunity for the climate warriors to confront the man who runs the greatest polluting, emitting country in the world. Now that would be taking some real action on climate change. For the warriors, I mean. And what happened? Nothing. Oh, there were a few placards and things about Falun Gong and whatnot, but no, where were the climate guys? Not a peep. You see, it's got nothing to do with climate change, or carbon, or emissions, or coal. It's just left-wing activism. Any issue. You'll get the demonstrators screaming at Peter Dutton, but certainly not the leader of the communist world. Now, I hate bullies. I really hate bullies. Speaking of the communist world, the CFMEU worked assiduously to get rid of the building industry umpire, the watchdog, the ABCC, which was the Australian Building and Construction Commission. The Howard government installed it back in, I think, 2005, because of the thuggery on Australian building sites. Once installed there was peace and productivity. Great. But the unions didn't like that. They like the power. The These people, this commission, had to go. Had to go. Stephen McBurney, he was the head of this cop on the beat, did a great job, but he had to go. Along came the Labor government, who promptly did away with this check and balance on union excess, probably at union behest. I can't prove that, but it's logical. Well, I suppose if the unions talk, Labor has to listen. The unions own the Labor Party. So when you vote Labor, you know what you're voting for. Don't be mistaken. Stephen went on to work at the AFL, where he now runs and organises the umpires, sort of chief umpire, I guess, for the AFL. John Setka, the head of the CFMEU, is now demanding that the AFL sack Stephen McBurney, or the union will put a black ban or a go slow on any construction undertaken by the AFL, like, I guess, the proposed stadium in Tasmania. Further, no one should ever employ McBurney. No one should ever employ Mr. McBurney? This is worse than the dictatorship of Nazi Germany or Stalin's Russia. This guy, John Setka, is a powerful union leader. The CFMEU. He is the boss. And he really looks after his members. He got them a 21% pay rise yesterday. I don't know if you heard. 21%. I assume he speaks for hundreds of thousands of Australians, union members. Because of bullying and thuggery, you have to belong to the union if you want to work in construction. No ticket, no start. No choice. We are, ladies and gentlemen, a free country. Or I thought we were. Not if this guy ran the joint, which of course he is dangerously close to doing. Do you like this? Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you approve of this sort of behaviour? We need a John Howard or a Tony Abbott with a mandate to stop this kind of thing. I can promise you Anthony Albanese will do nothing. Nothing. He can't. He needs the John Setkas of this world. He needs their support and, of course, their money. And keep in mind, I think it's only 13% of Australians belong to a union, which is, when you consider the power the unions have, totally out of all proportion. But John Setka and Anthony Albanese are like two philosophical peas in a pod. I guess. If I'm wrong, I might be. Let the Prime Minister come out and condemn union thuggery. And now, of course, this is a little update. The head of the Transport Workers Union, Michael Caine, not that Michael Caine, different Michael Caine. Michael Caine has written to Bain Capital, who own Virgin Australia, to tell them not to appoint Paul Jones to the position of CEO. Do you know why? Because they don't like him. They say he was involved in sacking workers when he worked with Qantas. Well, that may or may not be true, I don't know. But what's that got to do with Virgin? Has the world gone mad? If these unions get away with this, we will have, we've had it in the past, we will have the law of the jungle. You remember Chris Corrigan and the Patrick's waterfront dispute? It was back in 1968, I think. It almost brought this country to its knees. Corrigan refused to go on paying waterside workers who didn't exist. These were workers who never turned up. Didn't exist. But a pay envelope had to be prepared and given to the MUA, the Maritime Union of Australia. Now that should be enough to put you in jail. I talked to John Coombs. He was the head of the union at the time during that dispute. I talked to him many times, as I did with Chris Corrigan. I don't remember John Coombs ever denying that this ghosting went on, where stevedores had to employ people even though they didn't exist. John Howard and Peter Reith stood by Patrick's during those dark days. Can you see Anthony Albanese standing by the AFL or Virgin Airlines? I'm sorry, I can't. Which puts us right back into the jungle. Let me tell you a personal story. This is total fact. I know because I was there. I can tell you, I don't like bullies and thugs. And this is probably why. I was working for 5KA, who at the time was renovating an old building in Curry Street. Mancorp. Mancorp was Theo Morris and Bill Manos. And they were in charge of the renovation of this new studio, which turned out to be terrific. I was doing morning at 5KA, 9 to 12. And I remember Stan Barrett was the general manager. And he called me in one morning after the show, and he said, Jeremy, we've got a problem. And I said, oh, figuring it was something I'd said during the morning show. And he said, the building union. Now, I remember this was well and truly after the dark days of the dreaded BLF, the rogue days, the Builders Labourers Federation. Do you remember that? Now, these were new blokes. These were the good guys, or I certainly thought so. Stan said, the union doesn't like you. It seems you're too outspoken. They don't want you on the air. They don't like your opinions or what you say. And they've told me I have to sack you. If I want to get my building built, I have to sack you. It's enough to make you cry. Now, Stan is one of the finest men I've ever met. Great radio guy, great radio executive. He didn't sack me. He and Theo sorted it out. They never told me how. But it could be that Theo and 5KA paid off the union. To this day, I don't know. But I certainly didn't change the conversation, tenor of my speech, or the things that I said. But this is not the Australia that our heroes went out and fought for. Remember, when we vote for Labor, just think. Try and get some assurance that you're not voting inadvertently for this kind of shocking behaviour, encouraging this kind of shocking behaviour. And I must say that the people, the old-time union guys that I've met over the years, they wouldn't have had a bar of any of this thuggery. Somehow, the trade union movement has lost its way and it's been taken over, and not in a good way. Perhaps I should get to the dates. Have I got another second? Well, just very quickly, I was sad to see that Graham Webb died. 2GB, Channel 10, Blind Date. I took over Blind Date from him. He taught me a lot. I remember when I was an office boy, I knew him at 2GB and he was doing breakfast. I used to take his dry cleaning down to the shop. And he had a MG Magnet, sort of a hard top saloon MG. I liked him a lot. He was a nice guy. When you're an office boy, you see people at their best and worst. You see them for what they are, nice or nasty, kind or crazy. Graham was a very nice man in a not terribly nice, egotistical radio world. Vale Graham Webb. He was 88 years old. Rest in peace, dear boy. Now, the birthdays and anniversaries, if you're having a special day, a celebratory kind of a day, hope it's a good one. It's the 18th. Yep, it is. The 18th. James Paul McCartney, later to become Sir James Paul McCartney, was born, Jim and Mary, in Walton General Hospital, Liverpool, England, this day, 1942. The Pyjama Game opened at the Theatre Royal in Adelaide with Bill Newman, Tony Lamond, Jill Perryman, Kevin Johnson, Jack Little. That was 1958. George Mellecrino died in Kingston Town in London. Orchestra leader. Do you remember, Pete, do you remember the Mellecrino strings?
No.
1950s. They were sort of very melodic, lovely sort of, not my kind of music either, but, you know, he was quite famous. Mellecrino's strings. Don't know if he had champagne music or what he had. That was somebody else, I think. Barry Evans was born in England, star of the Doctor series on TV, 1943. Paul Eddington played Jim Hacker in Yes Minister. That was in 1927 he was born. Robert A. Lewis died. He was 65 years old, Riverside Hospital, Newport, Virginia. Co-pilot of the Enola Gay, the B-29 bomber that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima in 1983, and years later I saw an interview that somebody, I think television, was it Ed Murrow? Anyway, it was a significant interview. And when confronted with the death and destruction that occurred because of that mission, the question was inevitable. Do you feel any guilt or regret? And he said, no, not at all. I remember that. Astronaut Sally Ride becomes the first American woman to fly in space. She was a mission specialist aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger on the 7th shuttle flight. 1983 was the year. Robin Archer was born in Adelaide in 1948. The Art Gallery of South Australia opened in 2 rooms in the public library on this day in 1881. Wow! They would flip if they saw what they had to play with today. British victory when the Duke of Wellington defeated Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo in Belgium. That's about 25 kilometres south of Brussels. And the wonderful Dame Vera Lynn died at the great age of 103. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I will be back. Believe in yourself, and goodbye from the Court of Public Opinion.